If Lamborghini had truly decided to put the Zagato Raptor into production in the mid-1990s, the history of the Zagato brand could have gone in a very different direction. Imagine a Diablo, but almost 300 kilograms lighter, rawer, more futuristic, and designed as if Italian stylists had been asked to create a road-going predator from a science fiction movie. The Zagato Raptor was not an ordinary motor show concept, built only to look dramatic on a rotating platform. It was a fully functional prototype with a Lamborghini V12 engine, four-wheel drive, a manual gearbox, a carbon fiber body, and performance capable of embarrassing many supercars of its era. It was meant to bridge the gap between the Diablo and its successor before the world ever saw the Murcielago. It could also have become a short-run, extreme Lamborghini for the most demanding customers. But only one example was ever built, and that is exactly why the Zagato Raptor remains one of the most fascinating what-if stories in Lamborghini history. The story of the Raptor begins during a difficult period for Lamborghini. In the first half of the 1990s, the brand was not yet part of the stable Volkswagen empire. After the Chrysler era, control of the company passed to the Megatech Group, and the manufacturer's future was uncertain. The Diablo was still hugely impressive, but the supercar market was changing very quickly. Ferrari had the F50, McLaren had shown the F1, Bugatti was trying its luck with the EB110, and customers expected more technology, lower weight, and more sophisticated aerodynamics. Lamborghini needed a fresh vision. Around that time, the idea appeared to create a special model that could expand the range and test the styling direction of future cars. That is where Zagato entered the story. The legendary Milanese coach builder, known for bold, lightweight, and often controversial designs. For Zagato, the Raptor was also meant to showcase the company's new capabilities, especially in digital CAD/CAM design. The man behind the idea was Alain Wicki, a Swiss bobsleigh champion and passionate car enthusiast. Wicki knew speed in one of its most extreme forms. In skeleton and bobsleigh, the athlete's body is only a few centimeters above the ice, while the G-forces and sense of danger feel almost aviation-like. No wonder an ordinary sports car was not enough to impress him. He wanted something special, a Lamborghini with even more direct emotion than the Diablo, but with bodywork designed by Zagato. The idea was ambitious, but logical. Lamborghini had the engineering, Zagato had the style and tradition, and Wicki had the determination and business background to bring these worlds together. The project was not meant only to impress at a motor show, but also to lead to a short production run. Plans mentioned several dozen examples, and some sources even refer to 50 cars. In the end, everything stopped at a single prototype. The Raptor was created at an extraordinary pace. Zagato began work in the second half of 1995, and the finished car was shown at the Geneva Motor Show in March 1996. The entire process reportedly took less than 4 months, which still sounds impressive today, and in that era was almost insane. The key was digital design. The Raptor is considered one of the first concept cars designed entirely with computer tools, without building a traditional scale model. The styling project was led by Nori Harada, Zagato's chief designer. Thanks to digital work, it was possible to move quickly from a blank computer screen to a real, drivable prototype. This had major marketing value. Zagato could show that it was not just a traditional carrozzeria living on memories from the 1950s and 60s, but a company ready for a new era of design. Technically, the Zagato Raptor was based on the Lamborghini Diablo VT, but it was not simply a Diablo in a different body. From the Diablo, it inherited the drivetrain, the mid-mounted V12 engine, the manual gearbox, and the Vicus traction four-wheel drive system. Instead of the standard Lamborghini structure, however, it used a tubular space frame chassis designed specifically for this model. The body was made from carbon fiber, which allowed a major reduction in weight. The Raptor was said to weigh around 1,350 kilograms, which according to many sources was almost 300 kilograms less than the Diablo VT. That is a huge difference. In a supercar, every kilogram affects acceleration, braking, handling, and direction changes. Zagato therefore moved toward a philosophy closer to a racing car than a luxury grand tourer. Some electronics were removed, including ABS and traction control, as they were considered unnecessary weight and a limitation for an experienced driver. The heart of the Raptor was the classic naturally aspirated Lamborghini V12 engine, with a displacement of around 5.7 liters. This unit came from the Diablo VT and, according to the most commonly quoted figures, produced around 492 horsepower and about 580 newton-meters of torque. Some sources list around 485 horsepower. Others mention 492, but the difference mainly comes from data versions and rounding. A more powerful supercharged version was also considered, which could have reached around 620 horsepower, but that version never entered production. Power went through a manual gearbox and the four-wheel drive system, which could send part of the torque to the front axle. Thanks to its low weight, the Raptor was said to accelerate from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in under 4 seconds, while its top speed was reported to exceed 320 kilometers per hour, and possibly even 200 miles per hour. The Raptor's body was one of the most unusual parts of the entire project. The car had no traditional doors. Instead, the entire central cabin section, including the windshield, roof, and side glass, lifted forward on struts, creating an effect closer to a fighter jet than a conventional road car. The driver and passenger had to climb in over a wide sill, then lower a large glass capsule over themselves. This solution was spectacular, but it also made structural sense because it preserved a clean side profile and avoided heavy door mechanisms. The roof featured Zagato's signature double bubble motif, meaning 2 subtle humps above the occupants' heads. Interestingly, the central roof panel could be removed, turning the Raptor from a coupe into something like a roadster or targa. It was therefore both a berlinetta and an open supercar. The Raptor's styling was aggressive, but not overly cluttered. The front had low, rounded fenders and headlights covered by large, transparent lenses, which reminded some people of Le Mans racing prototypes, and even the Porsche 917. From the side, you could see very short overhangs, a cab forward layout, and massive rear haunches. Large air intakes in the sills guided air into the cooling system, while above the roof sat a distinctive snorkel-style intake, feeding fresh air to the engine. The rear was wide, low, and heavily vented, with a large panel of openings releasing hot air from the engine bay. The Raptor was painted in a blue-green shade often described as sea green or Corfu blue, combined with darker sills and a dark rear section. As a result, it looked like a vehicle from another planet, while still carrying clear Zagato traits, unusual proportions, courage, and its own design language. The interior was minimalist and very raw for a Lamborghini. Instead of luxury excess, Zagato used gray Alcantara, a simple dashboard, a digital display in front of the driver, and a wide center tunnel with an aluminum panel. The most important element was, of course, the classic open-gate manual shifter, the metal gate that was one of the most recognizable features of Italian supercars in the 1990s. The Momo steering wheel was thick and simple, and the whole cockpit felt more like a racing car than a luxury car. Because of the lifting canopy and the lack of conventional side windows, air conditioning was essential. Rear visibility was very poor, as in many Lamborghinis of that era, but practicality was not the point here. The Raptor was meant to make you feel like you were sitting in a combat capsule, close to the road, with a V12 engine behind your back and almost no insulation from the mechanics. After its Geneva debut, public reaction was very positive. According to reports, hundreds of people expressed interest, with some accounts mentioning around 550 potential customers. This shows that the Raptor was not just a strange experiment. It could have found real buyers. The car was later tested by Lamborghini in Sant'Agata Bolognese. It reportedly handled very well, was fast, lighter, and more direct than the Diablo. Even so, Lamborghini decided not to put it into production. There were several reasons. The company was already working on the Diablo's successor, known as the Canto, and the Raptor could have distracted attention from that project. In addition, Lamborghini's ownership situation was unstable, and after the later Volkswagen takeover, priorities changed completely. Instead of a short Raptor series and the Canto, the brand eventually followed the path that led to the Murcielago. The Raptor remained the only example. The fate of the only Raptor after the project ended was just as interesting as its birth. The car belonged to Alain Wiki and later appeared at events such as Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance and classic car exhibitions. In the year 2000, it was sold at auction in Geneva for around £144,000, which from today's perspective looks like the bargain of the century. In 2019, the Raptor returned to auction with RM Sotheby's in Abu Dhabi. Before the sale, its value was estimated at around $1 million to $1.4 million. In the end, the car sold for around $1,086,000. That is a very high figure, but considering that this is the only existing Zagato with Diablo 5T mechanicals, a carbon fiber body, and full functionality, it can be seen as reasonable. Today, its value would probably be even higher. So how much could the Zagato Raptor be worth today? Since only one exists, it is impossible to create a typical market valuation. There are no comparable sales, no average price, and no real second-hand market. However, given today's interest in prototypes, one-offs, 1990s Lamborghinis, and Zagato projects, the car could likely achieve at least $1.5 to $2 million, and with the right auction and strong promotion, possibly even more. Only one was built, and that is what makes the Raptor so special. It was not a technical failure, not an unfinished mock-up, and not an empty show car. It was a real supercar that could have entered production, but lost to politics, ownership changes, and Lamborghini's strategy. Today, it remains one of the most unusual chapters in Italian automotive history, a predator that, for a brief moment, looked like the future of Lamborghini, but forever remained a lonely prototype.